A significant event in the Blitz of Southampton during World War II was the bombing of the cold storage depot in the docks. Southampton was the first place to practice civil defence precautions before the war, therefore it was a shock to everybody and a propaganda coup for the Axis powers when early on in the war they could use the evidence of the fire, which lasted several days, to support their claim that Southampton was knocked out of the war. But adversity sometimes brings out the best in people, and this was no exception in Southampton. One of the first daylight raids by enemy bombers on Southampton took place on the 12th of August 1940, when the docks were attacked and the International Cold Storage Company's building in the port was set on fire. A full account of the incident appeared in the citation for the award of the George Medal, which was published in the official London Gazette the following month. The citation reads, "During an air raid, great gallantry was displayed by William Fisher in rescuing gunner Sidney Jones of the 71st Light Anti-Aircraft Battery from the gun sight on the roof of the building about 50 feet above ground level. In the early part of the raid, a series of bombs fell on the building itself and on the ground adjoining, and one man on the gun team was seriously wounded in the face and head. Fire quickly broke out, and in addition to the ammunition which began to explode, ammonia gas fumes were released from a cold storage chamber below. The sergeant in charge on the gun realized the danger to his men and rightly ordered them to abandon the post. It was found impossible to move the wounded man over the parapet wall and down the ladder onto the crane platform, as the ladder slipped off the ledge. Mr. Fisher then came up and without hesitation made a rough seat of a sling rope and fastened it to a hook of the jib crane. After obtaining the assistance of the crane driver, he allowed himself to be hoisted onto the roof of the building. He then attached a sling under the arms of the wounded soldier and waited on the roof until he had been lowered to the quay. The sling was then detached and returned once more to the rook and for the rescuer himself to be lowered. During such time as Mr. Fisher was on the roof, he was in constant danger from the fires, the gas fumes and explosion of shells. His conduct throughout was a fine example of initiative, bravery and coolness. Although the account states that William was lowered in a sling, other reports show that there was no time to get the sling untied and sent up to the crane, and that he actually descended hanging on to the hook by his hands. At the age of 33, William Fisher became one of the first recipients of the George Cross Medal, instituted by the direct command of King George VI, in recognition of acts of outstanding gallantry by civilians. Always modest about his actions, Mr. Fisher said, "I am naturally very proud that the King thought it my job of work worth rewarding, but after all, it was the least I could do." William was a recruit to Southampton's Air Raid Precautions organisation and was attached as a voluntary warden to Post 3 in Portswood. But what went wrong initially? Why did the fire burn seemingly out of control for so long? A suggestion is that the fire brigades that fought the blaze could not utilise the same equipment, therefore were unable to help each other. Another conclusion that arose out of the investigation by Wing Commander Hodsall is that wartime civil defence could not rely on the same hierarchy as local government in peacetime. As the war went on, it was important to appreciate that elected officials perhaps did not always have the necessary skill set to deal with situations that arose. This may seem obvious to us now, but at the time there were class barriers that put the rich man in his castle and the poor man at his gate. It was the war and individuals such as William Fisher that did much to overcome these differences and change this way of thinking.